like a shaky raft lost in a sea of too many lost podcasts. It's the Lost Community Podcast at thelostcommunity.com. Now here are the guys that have been reliving June 6th, 1986 since June 6th, 1986. David A. Dean and Steve the Goog Guglich.
This is what you get. This is the schedule. This is the set. It's unpredictable unless you forget. If it's low, you can bet. I know. This is what you get. This is the schedule. This is the set. It's unpredictable unless you forget. If it's low, you can bet. I know.
And it's the Lost Community Podcast, live and in color. Episode 7, the video cast.
Yeah.
Now, we've been getting lots of compliments, Steve, you and I. I'm David A. Dean.
And I'm Steve the Guglich.
We've been getting lots and lots of comments on how great our podcast sounds.
And we really appreciate that.
Well, I know we're going to get all the comments saying how horrible our podcast actually looks.
Oh.
Here we are. We're in my old childhood bedroom at my folks'
we
house.
infiltrated the other's village, and we're now sitting in the bedroom of Henry Gale.
You know, there was one thing we didn't talk about that we mentioned on the first podcast that I thought I would mention off the top.
Okay.
It's actually funny. The old woman in the book group scene,
Yeah.
her name is Amelia.
And as in Earhart?
Exactly. Like, it was a little inside joke from the producers
You've heard about
to
this?
us. That's what somebody was saying on one of the message boards I was looking at. Or
Wow.
maybe even been on Lost Community a long time ago, and I just never brought it up.
You know what your brother-in-law told me?
What?
And I should have asked you about this. He said that he heard that Matthew Fox, they're killing him off this year.
Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. We have no idea. We have no idea about this.
I have no idea either. I'm just.
But I was at Spoiler Fix right at the beginning of the season, and there was a bunch of stuff that was talking about how Matthew Fox wanted to take a couple of months off to work on some movies and to do some kind of stuff, and there was also talk about Kate having to choose, and it was going to be a really dramatic scene where she had to choose. And so me being a person who figured Kate would end up with Jack, I thought, she's going to be standing over Jack's deathbed telling him that she loved him. So I said this, if you go back to the very first postings on thelostcommunity.com, I put a little spoiler there that said, I think Jack's days are numbered.
Man.
So, now do I think his days are numbered? No, I think he's too integral to the plot.
I would think. It seems crazy.
They would have to figure out a way to finish that story off to make it worthwhile.
Dude, you know how many people would not watch the show anymore if Matthew Fox wasn't on? I mean,
I don't necessarily know if that's true.
Oh man, I've heard personally from people.
Like who?
Keith said if they
How
killed
can
Jack.
Keith still watch the show? I mean, so they killed off one of your favorite characters. See, this is another thing I thought we would get to right off the top. The show is nowhere near jumping the shark. Okay?
Yes, you're right.
It's time to take this word "jump the shark" out of our vocabulary. I was listening to the Generally Speaking podcast like 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about all the things that bugged them about the show. Okay, things we need to get clear right now off the top of our head, and I'm sorry if I sound condescending. The Lost Experience, a self-contained experience to explain mythology they're not going to get on the show. You're not going to see any of those characters, any of those people, except for maybe Alvar Hanzo, and I don't know, on the show. What we did in the Lost Experience, while it was fun, it was connected to Lost, has nothing to do with the television show. And it will only enhance our thoughts and reasonings on it, but not...
What about the video, though?
What video?
The video that was released that we put all the stuff together.
Oh.
What about that? I mean, that's still
Again,
part
that
of the backstory of the island, isn't it?
See, what everybody seems to forget is that about 3 or 4 months before the Lost Experience started, there were a whole bunch of press releases and stories. I read it both in the Daily News and the New York Post, which are our local newsloids for New York City. But anyway, I read in both of them that that the producers were upset because they were never going to get to explaining what the numbers really meant on the show. They weren't even going to talk about it on the show, what the numbers meant. And then 3 or 4 months later, the Lost Experience started to, voila, explain what the numbers mean. See, I think what people are missing about the television show is that it's not about the Dharma Initiative, and that's all mythology. I'll put it in layman's terms, if you will. The Lord of the Rings. Okay, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote 4 books. He wrote The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Return of the King, and The Two Towers.
Right.
Okay, but after he wrote those 4 initial books, he spent the rest of his career building this world, building Middle Earth, and he wrote the Silmarillion,
Silmarillion.
He wrote a whole bunch of fantasy books that took place in Middle Earth that don't even touch on the stories that are happening in the 4 main books.
Some do, some don't.
Yeah, but they're really about deepening the mythology more than pushing the story forward.
True.
Plus, all this talk about timelines that we went over in the Lost Experience, all that stuff we went over, that it was set in 2006, that it was set, it's all happening after we get off the island. The other thing we also have to put in...
Wait, the Lost Experience is
after. It takes place
So the Lost Experience is 2006,
It's
and
2006.
the show is 2004.
The show is 2004. So everything that happened in the Lost Experience happened after everything on the island. Are they no longer on the island? Well, we've been told that there's a 5 or 6 season max on the show.
Yeah.
Here we are in the middle of the 3rd season, right? That means that it's all downhill from here.
That's true.
But has the show jumped the shark? Jump the shark means that a show has reached its creative peak and then goes downhill.
Right.
The show has not reached this creative peak.
Right.
There's still so much more they can do. So no, they have not jumped the shark. Plus,
I'd have to agree, because I have to recant my statement after episode 3 of this year that I was wondering whether it jumped the shark.
I think that there were people that were upset with the first 6 episodes, that it didn't really leave us in a nice place. It didn't really wrap it up. It didn't really leave us with a cliffhanger worth holding on to. But the one thing I learned about Lost, I had the same problem with season 2. I didn't have it in season 1, but I think that's because it was all new. The thing about the season 2 and season 3 that I've noticed is that, and maybe this is a strength and or a weakness, is that without commercial breaks, without weeks to wait and stuff like that, this is a dynamite program.
Oh,
sure. And I remember watching episodes in season 2 and going, oh, won't they just get on with it? Won't they reveal something? And then I remember getting my season 2 DVD in the mail and watching it straight through and going, whoa.
Wow. That's the same thing that happened to me because your sister came totally new into it. She watched the first season and the second season this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's a Lost newbie, and we have the same experience of just being able to enjoy one episode after the other.
So